celebrate the release of Cursed. We have lots of really great things happening. First of all, I'm going to go through a little bit of a run of show and before we introduce Marissa. Like I said, I'm Rebecca. I'm the events coordinator for Rediscovered Books. I am so glad that all of you are joining us tonight. This is going to be a great event. I just want to kind of lay out a few ground rules, let you know what's going to happen. There is a question and answer forum at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to drop your questions in there. There's not a guarantee we'll get to all of them, but I will get to as many as we can. There is also an opportunity, if you haven't bought the book yet, there is a buy the book button. We still have some swag and some signed books at the bookstore that you can get, and we can get those sent out to you. We are very, very excited tonight to host Marissa Meyer. We were just chatting before this event that we have at Rediscovered Books have kind of a long history with Marissa. We hosted Marissa for one of her very, very first books, and we were trying to figure out if it was Cinder or Scarlet. Either way, it was quite a while ago, and in the last 10 years, Marissa has been very, very busy. So Marissa is a New York Times bestselling author of, as you all know, the Renegades trilogy, the Lunar Chronicles, Wires and Nerve graphic novels, the Lunar Chronicles coloring book, and her first standalone novel, Heartless. Marissa has created and hosted a podcast called The Happy Writer, and she lives in the Pacific Northwest with her family. We are here tonight to celebrate the second book of the GILDED duology, Cursed. And Marissa is here, and we are going to go ahead and kick off this event because you all did not come to see me. We came to see Marissa. So let's just get this thing started and welcome Marissa. Round of applause, everybody.
Yay! Hello. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem. Welcome, Marissa. I will step out of the way and let you have the screen.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight. Here we are, another virtual event. I'm so excited. I just got back from book tour. I had a fabulous time visiting lots of wonderful cities and seeing so many readers. But I am really happy that one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that we all got used to doing virtual events. Hate them or love them. I am really glad that we get to do this and invite people from all over the world who couldn't make it to an in-person event, still come, and I'll talk a little bit about the book. We're going to have a fantastic special guest who has been with me on a number of virtual events. Probably some of you can guess who it is. And we're going to do some fun trivia. We're going to do some Q&A. And we're just going to have such a great time talking about my newest book. So I know some of you may not have read Cursed yet. Maybe some of you haven't read Gilded yet. So I am going to attempt to keep the evening rather spoiler-free. So let me start by telling you a little bit about the series. So Gilded came out last year, and it is a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. But if you remember Rumpelstiltskin, it was about the miller's daughter who is taken by the king and locked in a room and ordered to spin straw into gold. She can't do it, but then this weird little dude shows up and offers to spin it for her, but she trades away her firstborn child. Fast forward a year, and he shows up wanting the child, and the queen has to guess his name in order to keep her child. That's the story. If you haven't read it in a while, hopefully that rings some bells. This is a story that I loved as a kid, but I also was sort of annoyed by as a kid because I felt like there were some unanswered questions. And one of the things that really plagued me for a long time was that I always felt like the king of Rumpelstiltskin was the obvious villain of the story. He takes this innocent girl, he locks her in this room, he threatens to kill her multiple times if she can't complete this impossible task for him. And yet at the end of the story, she ends up married to this guy. And like, we're supposed to be like, oh, happily ever after, I guess. I'm not buying it. That always really bothered me. So here a couple years ago, when this story kind of first was germinating in my brain, I knew right off the bat, the king is going to be the villain of my Rumpelstiltskin retelling. And that, of course, leaves the question, well, if he's not the love interest, we have to have romance, because it's me. So who's going to be the love interest of this story? And the question became, what if Rumpelstiltskin is in love with the miller's daughter? And that was kind of the seed of the idea that would then grow into GILDED. It is a duology. Cursed is now out. It came out a week ago, and it continues and completes the story. So this is the finale. And I don't want to tell too much about it, because I, of course, don't want to spoil things for those who haven't read book one. But it does continue to play on things that happen in the original story. There is a name mystery, the mystery surrounding Rumpelstiltskin and his name. There is something to do with the firstborn child. I had a lot of fun writing this book, in part because when I was writing GILDED, I had so many ideas for different secrets and mysteries, and I knew that I didn't want to reveal everything in the first book. So I held on to a lot of things for book two. And so setting it up in book one and then getting to have what I hope turn into like these big surprises for you readers was just pure joy for me as a writer. I hope I succeeded. So there's a lot of reveals, a lot of twists, I hope. And it was just a lot of fun. So I really hope that you guys will enjoy reading it. So tonight, I wanted to do something a little different. We haven't done this at one of my virtual events before, and I thought it would be fun to share some of my inspiration photos or images. I usually pretty much always create a board on Pinterest where I gather things that, whether they evoke a mood, or maybe I find a picture that looks like a character, or in this book in particular, I found a lot of wonderful, just like atmospheric, creepy setting images, and also a lot of fun monsters and creatures that I then use to help write the descriptions in the books. So with that, I'm going to have Morgan. Oh, thank you, Morgan. Share our inspiration board. We're not going to do everything on the inspiration board. So if you like what you see tonight, you can go on my Pinterest page. That's Marissa Meyer author, I'm pretty sure is my Pinterest handle. Okay, so we're going to start with the three main characters. These were the images that inspired first Serilda, our poor miller's daughter. And in the middle, we have Gild. Gild was so hard to find a good image for. This is, of course, Eddie Redmayne. Most of us probably recognize him from Fantastic Beasts. I don't know what this particular image comes from. I haven't seen it, whatever it is. But handsome redhead holding a baby. Okay, that's the closest that I could get for my prince character. And then, of course, we have the wicked Erlking. And for the Erlking, I knew that I wanted someone who I was trying to develop a character who was really creepy and wicked and evil, but also weirdly charming. And like, I wanted readers to swoon a little bit for the Erlking, and then also maybe feel ashamed for swooning. That was my goal with his character. So I hope that I accomplished that. Okay, so those are our three main characters. And then I also found a lot of pictures that helped inspire the setting. So here we have, first up, the mill, where Serilda lives with her dad, where she grew up. A very idyllic rural setting. And then this picture was the closest I could find for the city of Adalheid. I don't know. This is in Germany somewhere. If anybody knows where it is, please put it in the notes. I would love to go there because it just looks like such a charming, lovely little town. And so this is what I wanted Adalheid to feel like, at least during the daytime. Of course, Adalheid is home to the haunted castle as well. So these were my favorite pictures that I found for Adalheid Castle. The long bridge going out and it feeling sort of like a fortress. Of course, the big moon. The moon is so symbolic throughout the whole story. So I really loved the vibe that both of these capture and the feeling that they could be out in the middle of this lake and it's kind of set apart from the city that it kind of lords over. But if we see Adalheid Castle in its entirety, when the full moon is up, these were the pictures I used to describe it when the veil was down. And it is just a castle of ruins. It is decrepit. It is falling apart. It is overgrown with weeds and vines. And I cannot tell you how many hours I spent on Pinterest just looking for ruins of old castles. And oh my goodness, there are so many cool castles and buildings that have just been left to deteriorate in the world that it sort of breaks my heart. But man, does it make for good inspiration fodder for us writers. Next, we have the Ashken wood. I really wanted the Ashken wood to have a very particular vibe. I wanted it to feel lush and alive and full of creatures and flora and fauna, but I also wanted it to be so creepy. Like everything in this castle potentially wants to kill you, or in this forest potentially wants to kill you. So I love how we have like the mist going through the trees and all of the rocks look really like slippery and like they're just covered in who knows what. And then the picture on the left was my favorite picture that I used to describe Asseltal, the home of Pushgrola and the Moss Maidens. I wanted it to feel like kind of a little paradise in the middle of this haunted forest. And also and here we're getting into cursed stuff. In Cursed, we do travel to Gravenstone, which is the original castle of the Erlking. And it was really, really hard to find an image that fit what I was going for. This is the closest I could find. It's not quite right, but I do like that it has this fortress feel in the middle. They're just rising up in the middle of this forest. And then onto our creatures. One of my favorite things about writing this series was researching all of the creatures and monsters from folklore and the mythologies, pagan mythology and Norse and Germanic mythology. Pretty much every creature in the book is based on something that I found in my research. I did not make it up myself. So here, this was the picture that most inspired the Moss Maidens. And next. And on the left, we have the Hellhounds, who are, of course, the hunting hounds for the wild hunt. So creepy. On the right, this was the picture that I used to describe the kobolds, who are little like impish, dwarf-like servant creatures that are really super common in German mythology. Okay, next. And one of my favorite creatures is the Tatzelwurm. I love this picture. It was so hard to try to describe this creature in text in a way that made it seem really fearsome and horrific and not silly, because it's like, it's a snake with a cat head. That just doesn't seem super terrifying. But I found this picture and I was like, okay, that's that's the vibe we're going for. And I did my best. I hope that you read the chapter and thought, that's really scary, and not like, that's a weird animal. What is she talking about? And then one of my favorite creatures that I came across is the Shell and Rock, who Serilda meets and follows through the forest at one point in the story. And it is a creature in folklore that wears a jacket made out of shells so that they kind of like clink and have this lovely musical chime, which I thought, as soon as I read about that one, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but we have to find some way to get that in the story. On the left here, we have what inspired the Saliege, and also known as the White Women. This is an interesting character that is found, at least similar concepts are found in so many different folklores. It's similar to the White Women of France. It's has some similarities to La Llorona from Mexico. It's essentially like a ghost-like grieving woman. And sometimes they're seen as nice and helpful, and sometimes they will kill you. So I just thought this was such a cool and beautiful and haunting image. And so that was what I used for the Saliege. And then we have the Nachzehrer, which is kind of like a German vampire / zombie. And I don't want to talk too much about, what that does in the story, but so creepy. What a creepy, creepy creature. And then here we're getting into some of the creatures that you see in Cursed. So the Wild Hunt continues to hunt for mythical creatures throughout the book. And so that becomes a big part of one of our major plot lines, and what exactly is the Erlking planning to do with these creatures. So I wanted to do a unicorn, but because it's just one of like the most famous, the most well-known mythical creatures, but it was really hard finding one that wasn't like very modern and kind of beautiful for beauty's sake. I really wanted to have kind of a more medieval tone to it. And so this is an image from an actual medieval illustration. What is it? Engraving, I guess. Engraving, is that the right term? And then we have the Black Wolf. I won't tell you too much about that. It would spoil things, but he's super scary. Love him. And a griffin, another very popular creature from mythology, of course. And on the right, I'm not going to tell you too much about it because, again, potential spoilers. If you know what this is, awesome. I would not have before I wrote this book and did my research. I am going to call it the legendary chicken snake because that's what Gild calls it. And this is easily my favorite creature in the book, and has a really, really, what I thought was a really fun twist that I absolutely love, that led to one of my favorite scenes in Cursed. So there are some of my inspiration photos. I hope that was fun for you guys. And again, if you want to see more, you can check out the whole board on Pinterest. All right. With that, let's move on to welcoming our incredible special guest tonight. If you've joined me for these, you have heard her before. I would love to welcome my audiobook narrator, Rebecca Soler. I love all of your chicken snake comments, you guys. Rebecca, is it working?
I've invited her. We're waiting.
Okay. I know, the suspense, that's right. She's going to be fashionably late. She was here before when we were doing the run-through. Wonder if she's having tech issues.
She's coming.
Oh, thank you to whoever just posted the link to the Pinterest. That is so helpful. Awesome. Rebecca. We should like start a chant. Rebecca, Rebecca.
I am loving all the comments. Says she's coming.
Do we need a drum roll?
I don't know, but while we're waiting, we could probably do a question.
Sure. Why not?
Okay. If you could go back and change anything in your books, what would you change?
I would give Kai a last name, for starters. I would definitely have more LGBTQ in the Lunar Chronicles. Those are probably the biggest ones that really haunt me that I didn't do that. Yeah, going with those.
Okay. All right. Well, we might as well while we wait for Rebecca. Let's see, what has been your favorite booked world to write, and what was the easiest to build? As we're talking about all of your amazing images.
Well, the easiest was Instant Karma and Fortuna Beach because it's my only contemporary. So, like, you still have to do some world building, but not nearly as much. My favorite world to build, I think it's the one in Gilded and Cursed. I mean, I loved getting to play with the fairy tales and the lore. I love researching. I am such a nerd for research. And this was just like one incredible rabbit hole after another. And I could just research and do nothing else. But they're like, at some point you have to write the book. So just like taking all of the cool things that I learned and putting them into a world that was really cool was just wonderful. And I am so happy that Rebecca is here. Yay!
Yay. There were two of you. You were in tandem echoing as they were like, Rebecca, Rebecca. And I'm like, I want to talk to both of you, all of you, everybody.
Oh no. You know well, that's weird.
We'll just refresh. But thanks for having me. Yay, Cursed.
Yay, Cursed. And so Rebecca is my narrator. You have been my narrator since the beginning, and I feel so lucky that they picked you way back when, because now I seriously think of you as like my partner in crime. And I hear from readers all the time that are like, it doesn't feel like a Marissa Meyer book unless I'm listening to it in Rebecca's voice.
Oh, that is so amazing to hear. I am so lucky. I remember when I first learned about Cinder and reading the book and loving it. And then when I was prepping it, realizing at the end, I was like, is this a series? You know, oftentimes we're not told, you know, we're like, this is what you're recording. And then what a series, what an adventure. And like, what a long journey we've had together. I'm so blessed.
That's so funny you didn't know, because it's like, that's a big commitment. They're like, you're going to be here for a while. There's a lot of books coming.
I was like, well, let me make some notes on the voices that I used so I can remember what to do in the next books.
Yeah, I was wondering if when you're doing a series, like, do you have to go back and listen to yourself?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Basically, I try to take a lot of notes. I create kind of an org chart of who's who, who's related to who loves who wants to, you know, kill each other. And then when I'm reading, I read the book like 3 or 4 times before narrating. And then and you're so great at this, I just jot down all of the descriptive passages and adjectives that you use to describe a character that I might then help, you know, form a voice around. And so I will go back to my org chart from Cinder, say, to then talk to, you know, figure out Scarlet. But sometimes, even though I'm just super descriptive, I'm like, well, what was the voice I chose?
Yeah.
So it's great. I, you know, have it all notated, and then I don't love listening to myself, but I listen to myself in order to remind myself, you know, kind of what direction I took.
That was going to be my next question, because I hate reading my own work. Like, after it's been published, it's impossible to read it without that critical eye. And I'm always like, oh, I wish I would have changed that word, or, oh, that's an awkward sentence. Like, do you, when you listen back, do you kind of cringe and be like, oh, I wish I would have done it this way?
Yes, I think I think that's why I prep the books so much, because I want it to feel like one long monologue. I don't ever want it to feel like I'm reading a story and sort of that kind of jilted like pace. So, or stilted pace, I should say. So sometimes if I hear something that maybe I would have stressed, oh, I should have stressed that word and not that word. It really sticks out to me and it's annoying. But I record about, I would say 150 pages a day when I'm in the booth, and kind of while I'm in it, I'm just in it. I become immersed in your world. It's really solitary work. You're just kind of it's me and your words, and I'm in it. So I don't necessarily have that like other eye to pay attention to those details. And so I catch them later and I'm like, ah!
Yeah, no, I can imagine that's
yeah.
So I know, like, for a lot of people who are readers, there's this thing that kind of we joke about, that there will be a word that you've read a million times, but you've never heard it. And so I feel like there's a lot of words that we're not great at pronunciation sometimes. How often do you have to look up the pronunciation of a word?
Often. And so what's industry standard is to use Merriam-Webster, right? Because, and there are certain words that you're like, okay, I guess technically, yes, that is how we should pronounce that. But like in day-to-day vernacular, if I were to say that, people would be like, what are you doing? So there's certain words. In your world, it's like entirely different languages, or like words created based on other languages, but which is so fun because you were so helpful. And then my engineer for Cursed just randomly spoke fluent German. So
perfect.
Right. So I had all my annotations and I was like, I think this is it. And he's like, it's pronounced. And I was like, bless you, Oliver. Bless you. It was just
awesome. Because I was really wondering when I was going through my inspiration photos, like how many of those words did I flub?
Honestly, I was tracking with you. I'm like, yes, lovely page. We did it. It's so great. But it's also a part of what makes the world. So it's my job to like make the world feel like that. And part of the way that you make the world feel like that is not just all of those beautiful descriptive words in the language that you're using, but also the sounds of that language. And so it should be like Adalheid or Tatzelwurm instead of like Tatzelworm. Like, that's horrific to sound, but it should be those things. It should be Erlking and Perchta and Gerdrut. And it's through that lens that I can sort of aid in painting the tone and the sound of the world.
Yeah. No, and that's so similar to what I'm doing, trying to create names and words that add to the overall vibe of the world that I'm trying to create. And it's a process figuring out what to call things and what to name things. And you don't want to take readers out of this story, but you also you don't want it to be so out there that they're like, whoa, I can't, what is that word? But you also just want it to feel like it fits, like it goes.
Yeah. And I think you'd mentioned this before, but I think the choice of her name being Serilda is beautiful and otherworldly and yet classical at the same time. And it's just so special. That she will forever be in this world for me, and it's such a unique name. And I love that there's an origin, which in the chat, people may ask you what that origin is.
Yeah, no, just as we're talking about it, I'll just go ahead and say Serilda was named after my German great-great-grandmother was named Serilda, which I did not know when I started writing this book, and then came across her picture in a photo album, and it felt very serendipitous. So I know you're going to do a reading for us. Before we do, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What do you wish authors knew about what you do? Like, what advice would you give to an author to help you be the best narrator that you can be?
Oh gosh. I would say if you are writing large passages of text and it's feeling fussy, try to read it aloud and see if it flows well when you're saying it. Not to say, like, I have stamina, I have breath support, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to drive your sentence to the end. But if you're using a lot of like clauses and phrases and this and that to refer back to that, it is great when just reading it. It's very different to keep it active when you are narrating it. And then this is totally different, totally random. But if your name that you've chosen for a character ends in an S, and then it's a possessive, it's really tricky to say that aloud. So, to say, Serilda's hand is one thing, but to say, oh gosh, I can't even think of a name that ends in an S right now. But
we have Fricks in the story.
Fricks. Oh yeah, so that's one. Like, so there's two rules of thumb. I could either say Frick's hand, right? Or I would have to say Fricks's hand, hand, which is just one of those weird things. So I normally pick a lane and then do that the entire book. Those are the only, and that is like, honestly, don't pick a character's name based on the narrator. Like, pick Fricks. But it is one of those little things that, like, I'm like, okay, Fricks's hand. That's why I'm paid, to keep my mouth like agile.
I love it though. Those are brilliant answers. Okay, I have no idea what you're going to be reading for us tonight, but I am super excited about it.
Okay, so I honestly picked very early in the book because, again, I don't want to lend itself to any spoilers as well. And I think that this little scene between Erlking and Serilda helps set the tone of what you are relentlessly doing in this book, which is like, what is going to happen? And you don't let us know what's going to happen for a very, 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 very long time in this book. And so I have that first meeting in his bedchambers.
I love this scene. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. How fares my progeny? She started. The king was still turned away from her, his raven black hair trailing loose down his back. Your progeny does not exist, she wanted to say. This child is not yours, will never be yours. Instead, she pressed a hand to her stomach. I feel no different. If I'm being honest, I'm beginning to wonder what all the fuss is about. She spoke lightly to disguise the very real concerns that had started to bubble up inside her. I'm hungry all the time, but that's nothing new. She grabbed a nectarine and bit into it. When the juice dribbled down her chin, she wiped it away with her sleeve and kept eating, ignoring the king's disapproving gaze upon her. If Erlking wanted a queen schooled in courtly etiquette, he'd chosen poorly. Is there a midwife in the castle? She asked. One of the ghosts, perhaps? Surely the previous royal family employed one. I have so many questions. It would be nice to have someone to talk to. A midwife, the Erlking repeated, and Serilda could tell the idea had never occurred to him. I will find out. Serilda licked a drop of juice from her wrist before it could reach the cuff of her sleeve. Snatching a napkin from the table, the king tossed it at her. Try to improve your manners. You are going to be a queen and my wife. Your choice, not mine. She ignored the napkin and took another bite of the nectarine. But if you're embarrassed by me, there is still time to change your mind. His expression cooled, which was a feat given its usual iciness. At least I will not have long to tolerate you. 6 months. Barely a blink. She prickled at the implication. Surely he should at least try to hide his intention to kill her once she'd served her purpose. Out of spite, she broke off a hunk of cheese and shoved it into her mouth, knowing full well it was the king's favorite. She was still chewing when she asked, "Will we share your chambers once the ceremony is done?" The king scoffed. "Absolutely not. We will continue on as we've been until we can announce the pregnancy. There is no need for anything else." Serilda exhaled. She'd been dreading that question for weeks, and she felt dizzy with the relief of knowing she would not have to sleep here with him. They would just go on pretending. For now, she could do that. "I wonder if we should have held the wedding ceremony on the lover's moon," he said. Choosing the solstice had a poetry to it, but it seems my bride has grown impatient. "It is not impatience that I feel. You have not dreamed of being a summer bride?" She snorted. "I am not a summer bride. I'm a summer sacrifice." The Erlking laughed. It was a rare sound and one that always gave Serilda a twinge of satisfaction, even though she didn't want it to. Picking up his wine glass, he turned his back on her, which was exactly the moment Serilda had been waiting for. In one moment, she grabbed the silver-handled knife on the table and drove it into the Erlking's back, right between his shoulder blades. She felt the give of flesh, the crunch of vertebrae. The king stilled. For a long moment, Serilda wondered if maybe, just maybe, this time. Then he took in a long breath and released it, a slow, drawn-out sigh. "Please remove the knife from my back. I would hate to ask Manfred to do it again." Serilda cursed beneath her breath and yanked the knife out. Rather than blood dripping from the wound, there was a wisp of black smoke that dissipated into the air. She scowled. The first time she had stabbed him, she'd be sure he would fight back. But he hadn't even tried. That first knife had gone into his side, just beneath his ribs. The next time she'd tried, it had been a knife to his stomach, or approximately where she thought his stomach should be. The third time, she hit his heart, and she'd been so proud of herself for her exceptional aim, she'd squealed with delight. The Erlking had merely rolled his eyes as he pulled the knife out and held it up to the light. Spotless, as if it hadn't just been buried in his chest up to its hilt. Serilda dropped the knife onto the table. "The next will be to your head," she said petulantly, crossing her arms. "Maybe I'll take out one of your eyes, like one of your hunters took out Manfred's." "If it makes your time here more tolerable," he said, taking a sip of his wine, "then do your best."
Hey, cheers, cheers, applause. I love you so much.
I love you. These books are so, I see, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you get to be a narrator." I'm like, no. I get the book first. I get the book first.
Hashtag job perks.
It really is. It's like, I read off on my iPad and I'm just like, my husband's asleep and I'm just like in the middle of the night, just scrolling. What's happening? I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so blessed, and congratulations. This is delicious and horrifying and wonderful. And congratulations. It's another just brilliant offering, and I am just fangirling along with everybody else in this audience.
Well, thank you so much. They are currently fangirling about you, of course. I am truly grateful to get to work with you on yet another book. So thank you, and thank you for doing this fantastic reading with us tonight.
Whenever you want me, I'm there, Marissa.
Sounds good. I'll see you next year.
All right. See you later.
Okay. That was so fun. I'm so glad she picked that scene. That was a good choice. Next up, we are going to do a little round of trivia. I got to come up with the trivia questions. I tried to come up with some that I hope will stump some of you. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think we're going to have a poll. Okay, so we're going to have, here's the screen. So the questions will be here. And then there's also going to be a poll somewhere. I don't know exactly how that works. So Morgan is figuring it out as we speak. Okay, so our first question. Fairy tales and folk tales are given classifications based on recurring themes. Which of these classifications does Rumpelstiltskin fall under? Is it bride tests, child custody, deceiving the devil, name of the helper, or singing thieves? Okay, so if you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a tab that says polls with a little red 1 next to it. So go there and cast your vote for which of the classifications you think Rumpelstiltskin belongs to. All right. I'm seeing lots of votes. I'm not sure. Do we like close it down at some point, or do I just like, okay, voting. I'm actually going to read my notes here and see if I make sure I'm doing this right. Marissa reads fans' answer. Marissa comments on the correct answer. Okay. The correct answer, you guys got it right. Name of the helper. Rumpelstiltskin is a name of the helper. So the classifications come from what's called the ATU index. That stands for Arne Thompson Uther, who are the 3 scholars that created this system. So these are all 5 of these are actual classifications, but you are correct. Name of the helper. Next, another ATU question. Which of these is not one of the ATU folktale classifications? The Grateful Dead. A donkey claims its property. Mother killed me, father ate me. Breaking wind. Old people and their ungrateful heirs. Or the runaway pancake, which is not a classification of folktale in the ATU index. Here it is. Okay. Seeing some votes coming in. I'm going to give you all a moment to respond. Don't be shy. Don't worry about getting it wrong. Just take a guess. Find that poll button. There's 200 of you and only like 30 are voting. Come on, help them out. Help them out. Which one is not a classification? Okay. I'm calling it. You guys guessed the runaway pancake. The correct answer is a donkey claims its property, which, yes, means that the others, including the runaway pancake, are an actual classification of folktale. And yes, Breaking Wind are stories about magical toots. That is a real thing. Okay, our next question. This is a long one. Give me a second. Both Perchta and Hulda, who are characters in Cursed, were inspired by a Germanic goddess who was said to oversee spinning. In some traditions, this goddess was said to enter people's homes on the 12th night of Christmas. If the children had not worked hard all year, she would slit their bellies, remove their intestines, and stuff the hole with straw and pebbles. But if they had worked hard, they would receive what? A silver coin, salted fish, spinning yarn, new socks, or candy? What do you think? What would this very sweet, darling goddess bring to the good, hardworking children? Okay, we're looking somewhat evenly split here. Cast your votes. Oh, it's It's close. Silver coin was way ahead, and now salted fish is catching up. Spinning yarn is not far behind. What do we think? Okay, I'm going to call it. You guessed a silver coin. You are correct. Silver coin. But really, the true prize is that you don't have your stomach filled with straw and pebbles. Next question. In addition to the Erlking, many characters in history and folklore have been cited as the leader of the Wild Hunt. Which of these has not been cited as a leader of the Wild Hunt? King Arthur, a cruel Spanish count, a lawyer from Cornwall, England, Sir Francis Drake, the privateer / pirate, or Loki, and yes, I do mean that Loki, who has not been cited as a leader of the Wild Hunt. Ooh, we are very evenly split so far. We've got King Arthur, the lawyer, and Loki. Oh, a couple votes coming in for the Spanish count. Oh, someone thinks it's Sir Francis Drake. What do we think? Who has not been the leader of the Wild Hunt? Oh, it is so close right now. People are thinking, people are thinking. Oh, a lawyer for just a second there surpassed King Arthur. Okay, are we done voting? All right, the majority says King Arthur. The correct answer, who has not been cited, is Loki. Loki. It's kind of a tricky one because Odin, the other god from Norse mythology, has been cited as the leader of the Wild Hunt, is probably the one most often said. So I was trying to throw you off there. Okay, next. Though it is unclear what the name Rumpelstiltskin originally meant, scholars have speculated this as one possibility. And I think that I may have said this at last year's event. So if you were here, you might remember. Rumpelstiltskin may have meant strange little man, cruel helper, shrunken elf, little rattle ghost, or dancing forest spirit. What might Rumpelstiltskin have meant? Okay, we've got strange little man and little rattle ghost are neck and neck. What do we think? Someone is saying, yes, you did say it last year, but who remembers what it was? Okay. I think the majority has voted. You guys say little rattle ghost. Scholars say little rattle ghost. You are correct. This is that piece of information right there is how we ended up with a poltergeist as our hero in Gilded. Okay. I think this is our last one. I had so much fun with this one. There are many variations of Rumpelstiltskin from around the world, and the name changes by location. So again, the name of the helper stories in the ATU classification. Which of these is not a regional variation of the helper's name? Not a version of the story. And I apologize for my pronunciations. Gwarin a thwart, Tom Tit Tot, Pancy Mancy, Ootsly Gootsly, or Gooberdapple? Which one is not a regional variation of the helper? That was really fun. I just want to say them again. Gwarin a thwart, Tom Tit Tot, Pancy Mancy, Ootsly Gootsly, or Gooberdapple? All right. We've got Gooberdapple in the lead, followed by Ootsly Gootsly and Pantsy Mancy. All right, I think we can call it. You guys think it's Gooberdapple? And the correct answer is Gooberdapple. That is a Marissa Meyer original. I had a lot of fun trying to come up with a name that could fight against Ootsly Gootsly. All right. Thank you all so much for participating. Thanks to everyone who took part in trivia here in Cursed Land. I hope you learned some things and had fun. We've got a little less than 10 minutes left. Let's answer some questions.
Oh my gosh, so many questions. I'm sorry that we had a hard time getting Rebecca in, but I'm glad we sandwiched some of these great questions in.
That was a good idea.
So and it fit really nicely. One that seems to be very popular is, what is your favorite love interest that you have written?
Okay. So I kind of have a non-answer, because as love interests, I don't know that I have a favorite. I really fall in love every time I write a romance. That's kind of part of how I know that I'm doing something right, is when I start to swoon also. So I don't really have a favorite. However, I also often get asked the question, who is my favorite character of all my characters that I've written? And for that, for me, it's Jest from Heartless is probably my favorite character that I've ever written. So it's kind of the same question, but a little bit different too.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a really interesting question, and this goes a little bit back to the world building, is how do you come upon the story that you're going to tell? Do you come to the story before you build the world, or does the world building lead you to your story?
It is a little bit of both. And also characters. I'm going to go and throw characters into the mix. Plot, world building, and characters, they all develop alongside each other. For me, I tend to be a pretty plot-driven writer. So when I get an idea for a story, the first thing I do is start hammering out what is going to be the major conflict of the story, and what are going to be some of the major plot points. What's our catalyst that starts the story? What is going to be the big setback or some of the obstacles we might encounter? What are some things that might happen in the climax? So I'm probably thinking plot first and foremost. Okay. But then very early on, I start doing research and I start figuring out the world, and I will learn things that then come into the plot. A great example in Gilded is that I knew there was going to be an evil king, of course, was kind of the seed of the idea. But it was in my research that I discovered the character of the Erlking, and learning about him, and that he is sometimes cited as the leader of the Wild Hunt. That sent the story in a completely new direction that obviously became a huge part of the plot. So it really goes both ways.
Well, and so when you're doing this, your world building, are you a visual person? Do you have sticky notes, or how do you build your worlds?
It's a lot of exploration. It's a lot of research and a lot of just writing down notes about whether it's flora and fauna, or what are some shops that we might have in this, 17th century-ish town. What are some occupations that people would have? What is the landscape like? What is the government like? At some point you have to figure out, are we in a hierarchical system? Is there a king that's collecting taxes? Is that important in some way? Is there a war going on? So you have to have some concept of what's happening in the larger world, because that will affect the characters, which will in turn affect the story. But I don't have sticky notes. I do my Pinterest board for inspiration. But beyond that, I just keep pages and pages of notes in my writing file.
Well, and this, with all of this great imagery you have, we've got a really popular question that says, any chance we're going to see any of your books on the big or small screen?
I hope so. So the Lunar Chronicles is currently with Locksmith Animation, which is an animation company out of the UK, and they are looking to adapt it into an animated TV series. So I hope that it goes forward. I had a wonderful Zoom meeting with the two writers who are writing the adaptation, and they are so enthusiastic, and they just really seem to get what I was trying to accomplish, and they get like why readers love it, and I just have a lot of faith in them and what they want to do. So I really, really, really hope that it'll happen.
Well, and there's been some really kind of interesting questions in the chat about potential novellas from different characters' point of view.
Oh, not something I'm currently working on, but never say never.
Okay. Let me take a quick run through here. We got so many great questions. Oh, somebody would like it if you would have, there's a formal request for t-shirts and tote bags for your books.
Okay, we are actually going to be working on that. The wonderfully talented Taylor Denali, who did the Happy Writer podcast merchandise and also created some great swag for me for my book tour. She and I are going to be talking about doing some book-specific merchandise in the new year. So keep your eye out. I will post about it as soon as it's available.
Oh, you got some people ready to hand you money for merch.
I know, which is weird that here we are 10 years in, and why have I never done this before? But I don't know. Just never did.
Okay, what is for you, as we're kind of winding this up, what is the best part for you about writing new books? What do you like the best? What gets you the most excited?
There are a lot of parts of the writing process that I just get a ton of joy out of. I really love what I do. I feel super lucky to get to do this. The best parts, probably the beginning, when you first have a new idea and it is sparkly and amazing and you just can see all of its potential, and you just are falling in love with the characters for the first time and figuring it all and doing the research. Again, research nerd. So yeah, I love the beginning, and I love, for me, writing a book is a lot like building a jigsaw puzzle. And so at the very beginning, it's like I'm gathering ideas for different scenes and characters and, plot twists. And I've got all of these little pieces, and it's just a huge mess. And then figuring out how I'm going to bring those all together into something that makes sense. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge in the same way that putting together a jigsaw puzzle is a challenge. I really enjoy that.
Do you get ideas from reading other people's books? And and just as a bookseller, I'm always interested in, what are you currently reading?
Oh gosh, I'm between books. I just finished two fantastic books, and they were both on my list for a long time. So I was grateful for book tour that I got to get to them. So I finished The Bronzed Beasts, which is the third of the Gilded Wolves trilogy by Roshni Chokshi. She is amazing. The books are so good. And then I read The Kiss of Deception by Mary Pearson, which again, I've had that on my shelf for ages, and I loved it. I can't wait to read the next book.
Well, as we're all about books, and there were a number of questions, knowing that you've had a very busy last decade or so, there's been a lot of questions about kind of what's coming next for you.
Yes.
So, do you have anything you could possibly share with us to tell us about what's coming next?
I would love to share some things. In fact, I have been given permission to share the title of my next book, which has not been announced yet. So I love that. Before I get to that specifically, I just want to say that I have a number of things in the works, including a couple more fairy tale retellings are going to be coming up. I've got a couple graphic novels in the works that are going to be coming up. So lots and lots of fun things. But my next book that I am currently writing, this is the companion to Instant Karma. So it is another Fortuna Beach novel. And this one is all about Jude, who is Prue's twin brother. He gets his own love story. In Instant Karma, we were inspired by a John Lennon song called Instant Karma. And there was a magical twist in which Prue could cast karma on people. In this book, we are dealing with luck. And once again, there's a magical twist in which Jude, after singing a song at open mic night, is gifted with this power from the universe that he is just amazingly lucky in all things. But it is a little bit of a careful what you wish for story. And the title is now based on another wonderful Beatle, another of the Fab Four, Paul McCartney, and his song, With a Little Luck. And that is our title, With a Little Luck. And I'm so excited. I can't wait for you guys to read it.
And when can we be thinking about pre-ordering this book?
I don't know. That's a great question. We don't have a release date for it yet, but I assume the people behind the scenes are working very hard to make that happen.
That is awesome. You know, our hour has gone way too fast, and everybody could sit here for ages and be a part of this amazing conversation. Marissa, thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to Rebecca. Thank you to Macmillan Publishing for putting together a great event. I'm so excited. And Marissa, when you kind of get to Boise, swing our way because I have lots more questions.
That might be happening sooner than you think. We've got some road trips planned for our family.
Awesome.
We will definitely pass through Boise at some point.
That sounds wonderful. And the audience has loved this virtual event and the virtual conversations. Thank you. You know, if you feel the need to do this again, all of us out here in Cyberland would love to be a part of it and love to talk to you. Marissa, thank you. Thank you for taking time this evening. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll be looking for Marissa's merch. If you are interested in the books with swag, click the buy the book button because we still have some, and we'll get that sent out to you. Marissa, thank you. Good luck with the rest of your book tour.
You.
I'm so excited to see what comes next.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Rediscovered Books, and to Morgan, the publicist behind the scene, and to Rebecca Soler, our amazing narrator. And most of all, thanks to all of you for coming and spending your Tuesday evening with me. I really hope you will enjoy. Cursed. Yay. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
You are in for a surprise. Have a good evening, everybody. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Happy reading. Read a good book. Be kind. And we'll see you the next time around.